friends, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of One Question with Mr. Sharp. Today on the show, the amazing, the talented, the author, the teacher, the wonderful human being, Sara Ahmed. You ready? Let's go. Sara is currently working in Thailand, where she is an instructional coach. She is the author of Upstanders, which she wrote with Smokey Daniels, and she has a new book coming out called Being the Change, which I am dying to get my hands on. Heinemann, let's get that book published. Come on, we got stuff to read. She's also coming to Nerd Camp this summer, which I am super stoked about. She'll be delivering a Nerd Talk, and I cannot wait to see what she drops on our audience in Parma, Michigan later this year. I asked her one question, and the question that I asked Sara was, how can literacy drive social change? Her answer is really important. It's really powerful. You don't want to miss this. Be sure to stick around for her question at the end of the episode and leave a comment below so that we can all continue the conversation together. And don't forget to pre-order her book. Check it out. Isn't it beautiful? I'll put a link down in the comments below if you'd like to buy that. Thank you so much for watching. Sara, take it away.
Hey, Colby, thanks for having me on the show. And thanks for your question, how can literacy drive social change? I've been thinking about it. I've been writing around it a little bit. And I'm going to go sort of big picture on you because I'm thinking about literacy as a fundamental human right, first and foremost. And also sort of as this instrument. UNESCO talks about this, the United Nations talks about this, as an instrument to obtain and achieve other rights, right? So literacy, first and foremost, is a fundamental human right. So when we know that because people fear literacy, and history teaches us that if, through war or oppression under a dictatorship or even a system that classifies and marginalizes, and dehumanizes individuals or a community, group of people, the first thing to usually go is literacy. And it's either removed through force or begins to sort of disappear through sort of insidious choices. But what is missing is this engagement into literacy, into books, into writing, into language. And so we know that literacy, first and foremost, is a fundamental human right. And so, around the world today, there's research, there's correlation to this idea of literacy as a tool for change, because we know that there's NGOs that go around and work with women all over the world in terms of their own health, and how that literacy and that education can increase their life expectancy. And women's literacy rates lead to decreases in infant mortality and child mortality, and women's literacy empowers young women and women to go seek professional advice and to ask questions about their own health and their own bodies, and then they adopt preventative measures for themselves and for their children around the world. And so we're talking about literacy as a fundamental right, but also as this idea of access. Who has access to literacy? So literacy has been described as reading and writing, but it can also be described sort of as, scientific knowledge and technical knowledge, medical knowledge, legal knowledge, legal information. And so for kids around the world, and I'm thinking about America right now, some of our youngest citizens need to know their rights. Knowing your rights is a literacy. And so we think about that in terms of even just today as a tool, media literacy and visual literacy, that newer genre and the modes of all of that, and kids understanding and comprehending and given the tools to be able to access that as literacy. And so again, literacy as a tool just offers this idea of civic participation, right? So it creates opportunities for social and political and cultural engagement and participation in our societies. And so literacy gives you a seat at the table, and literacy nudges diversity into inclusion. And what that can mean at a school, again, is that first we need to ask some pretty hard questions about which kids in our society have access to this fundamental human right of literacy, which kids do not. It doesn't mean just because they're in school that they have access to this bigger idea of literacy as a tool. And so we want to be able to say to kids, like, look, we're giving you this tool of literacy, this sort of gift, but that's also your human right to be your best literate selves, right? Academically and socially, and just be socially and globally minded, be socially aware. I've been writing around this idea a lot of social comprehension and just being literate about others, as well as being sort of literate and understanding yourself and your own identity. And so then we get to empower kids through reading and through writing and speaking and debate and collaboration and innovation in our schools when they're creating, to become really informed citizens of this world, and they become decision makers, they become people who vote, they become readers, they become writers out in this world. And so they use all these acts of literacy hopefully as this vehicle to drive this change, and we hope it'll be contagious for others. But you can look at self-esteem, you can look at empowerment, again, civil engagement, and equality. And if we don't believe in this idea of literacy as a tool for social change, as a fundamental right, I think we sometimes get in our own way of that, right? And we aren't honest about the access gaps to literacy, then that's sort of the work that we need to be doing. So that's the how. How can we do it? Well, first we have to be really honest with ourselves about what it is and who has access to it. And so then we get to a place where it does drive the social change, and what Paulo Freire talks about challenging attitudes and patterns and behaviors of power. And then we get to this place of cultural transformation, right? So we want literacy to take us to a place of change, but also where it can transform society for the better. And so what that could look like in your classroom is a lot of what we hope and we know that many teachers are already doing, that educators are doing, that parents are doing. You're giving kids access to the world through books and through writing and through dialogue, and you're giving them books where they can see themselves, and you're giving them books where they have perspective on the world and get to see places that are unknown and unfamiliar to them, and people who are unfamiliar and unknown to them, and let them ask questions about that. That's what it can look like in our classrooms. But first we have to believe in it, that it is a right, and then ask the right questions about who has access to it. So in that regard, I have to ask you a question, and that is, it's related. It's related to this idea that I've been thinking about social comprehension and social literacy, and that is, how are you listening to your kids at school? So where are you, and what does it look like when you're listening to kids? So that's my question. Thanks for having me on the show. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to pre-order Sarah's book. I'll put a link down below. Be sure also to answer her question in the comments. I cannot wait to see what kind of conversation we can all have together. Thank you so much for watching, for being awesome. Have a wonderful day, and create something awesome-tastic. It's a good day for it. See ya.